Hello and welcome to Target Audience. My name is Glasgow101 and I believe there's a movie for everyone. In the world of modern media, everyone has different opinions, and I'm here to review movies and tell you who will enjoy it the most. Who is the target audience? On the chopping block today is Spider-Man by Sam Raimi. Let's get into it. Nowadays, superhero movies are huge. We've got a handful of cinematic universes raging on, TV series, one-shots, and animated films targeted at older audiences. Holy shit, when you put it into perspective, it's amazing we got this far. However, let's look back not too far into the past, but not so close to the present. At quite literally, superhero movies awkward teen years before they hit their peak. I'm of course talking about the early 2000s web-swinging, wall-crawling hit, Spider-Man. After a much too long opening crawl the film hasn't earned yet, we're introduced to Peter Parker, aka Tobey Maguire. Peter is the cover model for Nerd Weekly, and spends most of his mornings getting ignored and harassed, and obviously crushing hard on one Mary Jane Watson. I mean, what the hell, how does she not notice this weirdo? However, just when Peter's life can't get any more awful, enter his rich, handsome, underachieving best friend, Harry Osborn, aka James Franco, with genius billionaire philanthropist father, Norman, aka Willem Dafoe. Wow, holy shit, he ticks all of the cliché boxes. Bullied glasses, hot crush who he's invisible to unless he's being embarrassed, and even best friend who's cooler than him. Way to complete that checklist there, Marvel. Speaking of nerdy, today just happens to be the day of the school field trip, and after a few more scenes of bullying, and Harry hitting on his girl just to underline how horrible his life is, he gets bitten by a new, experimental, genetically modified plot spider. Or magic, if you follow the comics. After being seemingly unfazed by this horrifying creature crawling up all on him, we cut to Norman Osborn conveniently developing supervillain gadgets and drugs just before his life goes to hell, as he loses military funding and his company begins crumbling around him. However, why focus on the supervillain when we can have more Peter Parker's life sucks moments? We cut to his aunt and uncle Ben, who have become his guardians after his parents died, discussing their financial stress and problems that come with life. For seemingly no other reason than this kind of get mentioned in the sequels. Which I'm pretty sure weren't even planned at this point, but yeah. Trouble at home. Oh, troubled protagonist. Their discussion gets interrupted, however, when Peter stumbles in, pained and sweating from, what any 2-year-old who hasn't been dropped can tell you, is the giant spider bite on his hand. They even throw back to flashes and narration from earlier, like, how damn old do you think your audience is? 6? 7 months old? We obviously know that this is the spider bite. And because parallels, we start cutting back to Norman Osborn making himself a supervillain. Why do they cut back between these two things? Origin story, motherfucker. After Peter's night from hell, he discovers some changes in his body. His eyesight gets better, muscle growth, and other growths.
Change? Yeah. Big change.
After a morning of slight stalking is done, he heads off to school, where he talks to himself and stares at Mary Jane. You know, lovable protagonist. However, this isn't your average day, as he slowly begins to discover more and more of his abilities, like stickiness, spraying white ooze, and being constantly aware of what's happening to the hot chick you're stalking. So basically, puberty. His new abilities come in handy, however, when he accidentally embarrasses the asshole who's been bullying him for years, and is forced to beat him up in front of the entire school. The entire school sequence makes no damn sense later on, however, because after that day, everyone would be able to know, he's fucking Spider-Man. I mean shit, backflips, this bullshit, and literally pulling a lunch tray full of food around with a damn web in full view of everybody, and they just kinda laugh at him. He does this shit in full view of everyone. Damn, I think I would have figured out this asshole's identity by now. However, the school environment does provide some interesting opportunities for him to test his powers, so I'll give the movie that. However, Peter comes home to discover MJ and her father are having a strongly worded argument. This allows him to go into the backyard, creep on her for a while, and eventually have a discussion with her like a normal person. The chemistry in this scene is, in a word, passable. The reasons it's so weird is because it kinda comes out of nowhere after they've been acting like strangers to each other for most of the first act, and now they're hanging out like best buddies. However, their dialogue is okay, and you get to see at least a little bit of a spark between the actors. Except when Peter goes creepy again. Seriously, he should be put on some kind of list.
Oh, that's perfect. You're awesome in all the school plays.
Really?
Yeah. I cried like a baby when you played Cinderella.
Peter, that was first grade.
Well, even so.
However, asshole McVenom III shows up and picks up MJ in his kick-ass car. And Peter thinks she's just vain enough that if he gets a car, she'll love him too. He comes up with some half-baked plan to become an amateur wrestler to win money to buy a car. So, he honestly has a great and close to iconic montage of coming up with his costume that I don't have the balls to crap on. However, on the day of the fight, Uncle Ben offers to give him a ride and gives some sage advice.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Which he immediately throws back in his face. What an asshole. Sure, this won't come back to bite him. None of this matters though, because we've got a fight to get to, where an obviously compensating for something wrestler takes on Spider-Man. We're treated to some Sunday Night Raw action with a really bloodthirsty crowd beginning to yell for this clearly young person's blood. Organized sport. After taking the testosterone terror down, Spidey gets scammed by the wrestling organizers out of his money. But when they're robbed moments later, Peter lets the thief go. Once again, sure that won't come back to bite him. Cut to the next shot, and oh no, it came back to bite him, as Uncle Ben has been shot and killed, and after a quick chase through the city, he realizes the killer was the thief he let go earlier. So movie magic goes down, and the thief dies without it directly being Peter's fault. Hooray for having a clear conscience, yet it kinda being murdery. Meanwhile, at a shady government base, come on, you all know there's one in your hometown, a mysterious cackling figure murders the people who are about to put Norman Osborn out of business. But no time to figure out who this mystery man is, because we cut immediately to Norman Osborn interacting with Peter and Harry at their graduation. After Norman continues to ignore his son and talk to Peter, we see Harry glancing evilly at Mary Jane. Wonder what this could mean. Wait, there's something missing from this shot. There we go. After the graduation, however, Peter reflects on the loss of his uncle, and decides to take his words to heart and become Spider-Man. After maybe not the best, but certainly one of the most iconic and just plain fun to watch superhero origin montages, we slowly see the public gaining support for Spidey. All except the bald sociopath known as J. Jonah Jameson, who, after having an underdeveloped grudge against Spidey, needs pictures of him to sell newspapers. However, after a coincidental run-in with his love interest in a giant city of millions, we get a quick MJ and Peter bonding moment, which is mostly just there to tell us that Peter and Harry live together now, and MJ and Harry are dating. That epic foreshadowing paying off. Seriously though, they just run into each other. I can't even find my family when we go to the same damn store. Peter finds out about Jameson's job opportunity and decides to get his mad selfie game on point. Now that we see our hero getting a job, we see our villain losing his, as the board decides to sell his company. Cut immediately to a festival under attack from a cackling stranger who kills all of the board members in just the most Power Rangers way possible before they can announce the selling of the company. However, luckily, Peter's on the scene and delivers some epic Spidey butt-kicking action. Real gripping Spidey action. Joker on a hoverboard escapes before he can be stopped, and our hero manages to save MJ. Boy, look at all them physics. After dropping her off on some people's roof for no apparent reason, Spidey heroically swings off with a sick but unnecessary flip. Finally though, we get a scene we've been waiting for. The villain, who has the power Norman got from a serum, talks like Norman, has Norman's tech, and hunts people down who negatively affect Norman, was Norman. To this day, I have no idea why this scene exists. Sure, it outlines some of the motivation for the character, but it's treated like some big villain reveal, when we all know who the villain is. Speaking of the Power Rangers villain, JJ finally gives him a name, and announces Spider-Man is working with the Green Goblin. Peter objects to this and gets kicked out of JJ's office, but just before he leaves, the Goblin himself shows up and asks for the name of the photographer who takes the Spidey pictures, because Jameson doesn't give him photo credits in the actual paper. However, this scene, and this scene alone, gives Jameson a three-dimensional character that resonates throughout the series.
Jameson, you slime! Who's the photographer who takes the pictures of Spider-Man?
I don't know who he is. His stuff comes in the mail.
You're lying!
I swear.
This scene is just so perfect. It fits with the character because of how well the actor and writer sell it, yet is completely different from what we've seen so far. It gives this character real depth in just a few seconds of lines, simply because of how it's sold and the way it's made, and just really well put together. That's it. No joke. Next part. Spidey shows up and puts a stop to Goblin, and then gets immediately drugged and kidnapped. Where was the Spidey sense on that one, asshole? But rather than killing him, Gobby kidnaps him and offers Spidey a place on his team, stating that the people will turn against him. And despite the fact he's been writing negative papers about Spider-Man from the beginning, the latest paper by JJ strikes a chord with readers who immediately turn on the Wallcrawler. Because people still listen to the newspapers in the early 2000s, apparently. All of the people have turned on Spidey, except of course Mary Jane, who is still being stalked, which she seems totally fine with. I hate to blame the victim here, but seriously, tell this guy to go home. What, do you like the attention? Mary Jane rushes off to meet Harry, but even before she gets out of sight, we see stereotypical 80s New York deciding to mug the random chick walking down the street. You know, life in the big city. Peter suits up to stop the gang and romances the damsel in distress into giving them what will go down in history as one of the most famous movie kisses. Good for you, Stalker. Good for you. However, the next day he's ambushed by the Green Goblin, demanding answers for his team-up question. Peter turns the offer down, and the Mean Green ain't happy, cutting the Wallcrawler with high-powered ninja star tech. Spidey escapes, and we cut to Norman arriving at Peter and Harry's apartment for Thanksgiving with the two of them. Mary Jane and Aunt May are also there, and during dinner, Norman sees Peter's cut in the arm and realizes who he is, rather than figuring it out during all of this bullshit. He storms off and mighty morphs into the poor man's Joker and attacks some praying Aunt May. Where is your god now? Mwahahaha! At the hospital, Peter realizes that Gobbs has figured out who he really is, and he does nothing about it at all. That's how you're gonna play that, Peter? Alright then. But hey, he gets to flirt with MJ over his aunt's hospital bed. Really, Peter, what the fuck? But his romance is interrupted when Harry reveals to his father that Peter loves MJ more than life itself, and kidnaps her, and threatens Peter over a payphone he couldn't have possibly known he was gonna pick up. One quick bridge fight Hero has to choose, and citizens banding together behind a symbol scene later. The fight intensifies as Gobby begins to threaten MJ. Just kind of a little bit more than when he was threatening her by dangling her over a bridge. Peter corners the Goblin and unmasks him as his best friend's father, which causes him to hesitate in delivering the final blow. Gobby begins monologuing and setting up a trap, but Peter does a 6 Spider-Sense flip and causes Norman to self-impale. Wah wah. Rather than explain himself, Peter just kinda leaves Normie's body, causing Harry to hate Spider-Man forever. Good plan, Pete. After the funeral, Harry vows revenge, and MJ approaches Peter confessing her love for not Spider-Man, but him. Peter, knowing that she'll never be safe with him, rejects her and walks away while delivering an inner monologue followed by credits. And that's the show. But how good truly is it? Overall, pretty damn good. Sure, it has its problems, the effects don't really hold up in parts, and the dialogue can be awkward at times, and the villain is just downright goofy. However, it truly has a certain comic book charm, as well as many, many scenes that perfectly encapsulate a true comic book origin movie, and a pace, cast, and 3-act structure that really makes it a well-polished and entertaining film, even without being a comic book fan. However, who will enjoy the film the most? Who is the target audience? Well, to put it simply, more specifically, teenage boys that have similar attributes to Peter Parker. Really think about Spider-Man. It spends most of the first act setting up Peter as a sympathetic nerd who ticks all of the cliché boxes. But when he gets his power, he beats up a nameless bully and gains the attention of a beautiful girl. However, the film doesn't stop there. To really make nerds feel good about their lives, it shows Peter is not only a good person, but the best fucking person possible. As he saves lives, gains the support of the public, saves the entire city, and the only thing stopping him from getting the girl is how good of a person he is. So, much of this movie is designed to make people who connect with the character of Peter feel good about themselves. And the archetype they set up was that of a nerdy boy. Hell, they underline this so much, even Peter's cheesy dialogue makes sense, as it seems to be over-attempting this. So, congratulations. My name is Glasgow101, and you are the target audience. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, Glasgow101. Thanks for watching the first episode of Target Audience. I had a lot of fun making it and hope you've enjoyed. If you want to check out some more videos by me, feel free to click the annotations on screen. We've got How to Fix Xenoverse 2 on the left, and the first episode of my Nuzlocke Let's Play on the right. Take care guys. Bye bye.